Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I wanted to start this because I get asked at shows if I teach crochet, and my answer has always been no. So this way I can, do some tutorials, show basics, and you can work up to eventually making some cute little buddies. So let's get started. All right, first things first, you're gonna need some tools to crochet with, such as a crochet hook. I believe I got this at Michael's. It's a Susan Bates 5mm. Probably sounds a lot like gibberish right now, but the more you get into working with stuff, the more all this starts making more sense and why a 5mm makes a difference versus a different size. You'll need scissors. Got these cute little unicorn ones on Amazon. Yarn needles, stitch markers, tons of options out there. Any hobby store is going to have them, Amazon. Then let's move on. All right. Yarn, so many different kinds of yarns out there. There's chenille yarn, there's worsted weight, there's sport weight, there's blanket yarn. Can kind of make your head spin thinking about it. But first things you want to know is kind of what do you want to make? I use Parfait Chunky, a chenille yarn, or something similar to make all of the crochet buddies that I make. I know some people who've made blankets with it, so it would be very, very soft. It's just a little bit more complicated yarn to work with because it's harder to see your stitches. But when you're looking at a yarn label, you're going to notice it's going to tell you how many yards or grams of yarn is actually part of that. So when you're looking at patterns, if it tells you need like one skein, this is a skein. Typically, a lot of them are going to be pretty similar size. There's some that come way larger, way smaller. Just depends on the manufacturer. And then on the flip side of a label, you'll see more information like what the color is. A really important one to note is the dye lot. So if you're getting multiple skeins of yarn for a project, you're going to want to make sure they're all in the same dye lot. Otherwise, colors could be slightly off. You would hope that they won't, but better safe than sorry. Then down here, you're going to get the weight of the yarn. So this is considered a super bulky, even though it's not, doesn't look super thick, but it's what people consider. Then it's going to tell you some information. So this first box over here is the knitting needle size. So it's recommending an 8mm knitting needle, which is a US standard size 11. Then it's also telling you to make a 4" by 4" little block of test. It should be 10 stitches using that size. Or you're going to have what's telling you to use an 8mm crochet hook. And then same thing where to make a 4" by 4" square should take about 9 single crochet stitches. But then there's also like worsted weight yarn that I got here. You're going to have the same things. It's going to tell you how much yarn is on the skein. This one is pretty sweet. It tells you like how many skeins you're going to need for a project. So if you're making a blanket, you're going to need 4 skeins. A scarf, 1 skein. And then same information. You're going to have the weight is going to be a 4, which is commonly known as worsted weight yarn. It's recommending a 5mm crochet hook or a 5mm knitting needles. So just great information, tons to read there. Very helpful when getting ready to start working on your projects. All right, now let's start crocheting. Kind of. You're first going to need, how in the world do you hold a crochet hook? So one way is known as the pin hold. So think about how you hold a pin to write anything. You're going to do that. I like to put my thumb right on the flattened part. Most crochet hooks will have that, or something very similar. And then just hold it like you do a pin. The other kind of hold is going to be known as the knife hold. So my hand's going to come over the top. My thumb's going to sit in the same spot. And I put my finger up top. Some people don't. That's just my preference, how I learned. But it's just another way to kind of control and guide how your stitches are going to be created. Next, how are you going to hold yarn? So there's so many different options on how this can be done. I've seen many ways I've tried figuring out that makes no sense to me. This is how I learned from my grandma. So what I do is I take my yarn end. So then I have my working yarn off here to the left. I am going to take and wrap it around my pinky and then just my other fingers are gonna hold on to it. It helps keep just enough tension for me to keep guiding stuff and knowing what's going on, good tension. It'll make more sense the more we get into crocheting. So then next up is going to be creating a slip knot. It'll be the first thing you need to do before creating a chain, which is the base of any like flat crochet work. So like a blanket, scarf, anything will start with a chain. So this is my way to make a slip knot. I'm sure other people do the same. I've seen people do different ways. Again, personal preference, this is how I do it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take the end of my yarn, I'm gonna wrap it around my 2 fingers here. And again, I'm gonna cross over. My pinky's gonna hold onto that yarn just so it has somewhere stable to be. I'm gonna take my hook, I'm gonna go under, grab on, pull through, let go of everything, and there you have a slip knot. So slip knot because everything can slip back out and slip tight closed. So show you that one more time. Again, end of the yarn. Take these 2 fingers, wrap the yarn once, second time around, hold on to the end. Hook's gonna go under, grab onto that back yarn, flip over, pull, and there's your slip knot. Now for the foundation, the most basic stitch you could possibly do, a chain stitch. So we're gonna do that hold on the yarn. Pinky's gonna grab on, come around. So to start a chain, we're going to put the hook under the yarn, grab on. Then I like to grab the knot at the bottom so I can go and pull the hook through that slip knot. And rinse and repeat. Yarn's gonna go over the hook, hook on, and through. And any project you need, just gonna repeat as many times as a pattern says, however long you're wanting a blanket to be. You'll just keep repeating and repeating and repeating until you get as long of a chain as you are looking for. Don't worry if at first if your chain stitches aren't looking very even. They're probably not going to be your first few tries, maybe not even your first dozen tries. That's what practice is all for. Getting used to that tension of how you're holding your yarn and just getting used to the flow of how your hook goes through. So I'm gonna get some more chain stitches on here so I can show our first stitch, a single crochet. So single crochet after a chain stitch is going to be a very simple stitch, very easy, a nice, simple, clean crochet look. Pretty much all the little crochet buddies that I do use single crochet for almost the entire project. So it's going to be the base for anything you want to work on. Everything builds on the single crochet. So using a knife hold, so my pointer finger is going to hold onto my yarn to keep it in place, holding onto my working yarn. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert our hook into the second chain from our hook. So what you have here, you have your first chain, second chain. I'll point that out with the needle, make it a little bit easier to see. So you have 1 chain, 2 chain. We're going to work in this second chain. So you'll insert the hook in, and then yarn over the hook, pull through. So now there are 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over your hook again and pull through. And that is your single crochet. So to do that again, now we'll work in the very next chain. Hook will go in. Hook goes under the yarn or yarn over, however you want to state that. Grab on some yarn, pull through, 2 loops, yarn over again, and through. So, like I said, basic stitch, great way to practice to get used to your tension, Great way to practice, we know what kind of hold works for you. So like I said, I like using the knife hold most of the time, but if I want to do the pin, sometimes I switch to that because it's just feeling more comfortable. It kind of changes a little bit how your hook kind of guides through, but all the basics stay the same. So hook through, yarn over, grab, pull through, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through. Alright, I'm getting ready to work in that first initial chain. So same thing, hook, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops, yarn over again, pull through. Now, we've done 1 row of single crochet. So what you're going to do to move up to your next row is we're going to now do a chain stitch. So yarn over and pull through. And then we will turn. So now we're looking at the other side of our 1 row of single crochet. So now you can see you'll have 2 loops of yarn to work through. So you have your, let me grab my yarn needle. So you have a front loop and a back loop. There will be times and patterns where you see to work in front loop only or back loop only. For basics, we're going to work through both loops. So what you'll do, so now you see this is your last crochet stitch that you worked in. So you're still going to insert your hook. See, I've gone through both loops. Yarn over, pull through, 2 loops, yarn over, back through. And rinse and repeat all the way across. Make sure you're going through both loops. See, everyone still makes sometimes and the hook falls off. Insert, yarn over, grab it, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through. So I'll just kind of keep doing that nice and slow. Hopefully this is making sense, or you can watch it enough times to start picking up on what is happening here. Again, I always want to encourage questions to be asked if I'm moving too fast, if I need to explain something a different way. I've been crocheting since my grandma taught me when I was a little girl, so nearing 30 years of crocheting. And honestly, kind of forget what are some basics that people may not know, and I may be going faster than what somebody would prefer, and would rather that I slow down a little bit to break it down even more. Nothing is out of the question. I want, people to learn and enjoy and have fun doing this. So, then also speed comes with the more you crochet. And keeping stitches looking even also comes with kind of learning your tension on your yarn and making sure you're not, because I know when I first started, it was very easy to keep everything extremely tight, which then makes things a little bit more difficult to work in. If you're struggling to get your hook into your stitch, then your tension is way too tight. A couple options to remedy that is to maybe go up a size in your hook. So maybe instead of a 5mm, you work up to a 5.5mm until you start getting used to what is kind of a little bit better option for you. I don't always go with the yarn, I always go with the hook size that the yarn recommends, just my personal preferences, because the kind of projects I work on doesn't really require exact hook sizing for making sure that a sweater is going to be the right size. All right, when we get to the end of our second row of crochet, you want to make sure you're not going to miss this stitch here. This is our very first stitch when we came across. So you'll see there are you have your 2 loops. Make sure your hook goes in through both. Then we'll do our same yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. And we'll move on to another row. You're going to yarn over to make a chain stitch. So we got chain 1 and then turn. So that is single crochet. I'm going to leave it at that for now. Next time we'll learn a few other stitches, start, adding some complexity to things. And please ask questions. I want to know what y'all want to learn. And also, find me on Instagram or in the comments here. Share your progress. Are there any things that you're finding a little bit more of a struggle? I want to see how your work is looking, Everyone's got to start somewhere, and there's nowhere wrong to start. So, I'll see y'all later.